my next topic, Quiet on the Set. All right, Quiet on the Set. For those that have not seen it, might not know about it, Quiet on the Set is a documentary. I think a 4-episode documentary based on the 90s and early 2000s, 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s as well too, child stars on Nickelodeon, right? And they pretty much explain or discuss their traumas, their griefs, how they experienced working under Dan Schneider on Nickelodeon, right? So it was a variety of cast members really doing interview style, I don't want to say Q&A, but just interview style of just expressing and, exposing what they went through along with staff and things of that nature. And again, if you watched it, or if you even like a person like me, I've always been interested in like Hollywood. I've always been like the kid that's like, I want to be in the industry. I want to do things like that. These are the things that I want to be a star, Disney, blah, 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 Nickelodeon. And as I got, never attempting to do those opportunities, but never actually getting those opportunities. But always being interested, like looking it up, looking behind the scenes and things like that. So when you kind of do your research, do your due diligence, you look at how some people grow up and turn out, you wonder how is such and such turning out like this? What is going on? You would assume that, because you were a child star, you are living a certain lavish life, but then you become a teenager and then an adult, and then you're kind of spiraling out of control, right? We look at Amanda Bynes, who we would assume that, damn, she had a great career, or how did she end up like this, right? You look at Britney Spears, damn, she had another great career. How did she end up like this, right? Watching that documentary explains how those things can happen, how unprotected children are in those industries, and how they end up, how they turn out. If you're watching this, my bad. But again, it was a very, I ain't gonna say disheartening, but again, like I said, if you you did your research, you know what was going on, how some of those folks operate in that world, and it's very evil. Some might say demonic, satanic. Again, you could say that as well too. But again, watching it, knowing those kids are not protected, right? Understanding that they will. They fall into pressure under adults. Adults are putting kids in certain positions that they shouldn't have been put in, right? And then you have parents, for the most part, some parents in that industry allowing it, right? You have the two different examples or scenarios where I look at Drake Bell's parent or father, and then you have the Amanda Bynes father, parent, right? So we're going to discuss that a little bit. One of the things I wanted to talk about for the most part was the response video from Dan Schneider, right? If you watch that one, you see the guy, what's his name? Boogie? I think his name was Boogie. Yep, from iCarly. If you've ever seen iCarly, the only nigga on the show with the dreadlocks that on the smoothie stand. From his view, he says after he watched the series, he felt some type of way, and he said he reached out to Dan Schneider to do an interview. After he watched the show, he wanted to reach out to Dan Schneider, not nobody else, not no trial stars that was actually involved that got hurt, to just say, hey, I saw this, how are you doing, things like that. But I want to go and ask you, Dan. I want to get inside of your mind, Dan, and what the hell was going on them sets, right? Okay, so you see where I'm going with this. You asked me, I think Dan set that up himself to save face, to clear his name, to probably try to get ahead of what he knew what was coming, right? So again, he grabs a guy that is not a Don Lemon, not a Carl Tuckerson or Tucker Carlson, not a Candace Owens, whoever it might be that's really going to challenge him and grill him and really hold him accountable for the things that he's done in his past and what he has allowed, right? So one of the few things that I've taken away from the interview, right, along with the show was, and then it kind of is parallel because the interview will kind of help you understand the answers on Dan's shit and what he was saying. But like I said, I think Tebow asked him, Boogie asked him a lot of weak ass questions. He did challenge him. Some of the answers seemed like they were ready. The questions seemed kind of like, he knew what they were going to be, so I'm going to prep for him, which maybe that's how it goes in that shit. But again, to me, it didn't seem as genuine because, again, I'm asking why now, right? Did you wait till you saw the documentary to go, oh damn, I fucked up, or did you not in those moments, or after you got removed from the Sam and Cat show with the Ariana Grande and the Janae McCurdy joint, for you to realize what you have been doing to these people or these kids and your staff, right? So one of the things I think Boogie asked him, uh, I think he asked him, hey, I watched it, writer's room, right? What was going on in the writer's room? And Dan instantly goes, well, hey, man, I just want to say that, if I made anybody feel uncomfortable, I apologize. No writer should have to feel uncomfortable doing their job. If anybody felt some type of way, they could have said something and things like that. And when you watch the documentary, you know it's opposite of that, right? A lot of people on that set feared that man, because they were scared of the repercussions if they said something that Dan deemed out of pocket, out of line, or you questioning his judgment, right? So if you watch the writer's room, or where he was explaining how maybe he was doing jokes to the staff that was very inappropriate, making young women bend over and kind of degrade themselves and things like that in a room full of other people, especially, and I can understand two women in that male-dominated room where, hey, especially young, where they're just really trying to get into an industry. So they're doing degrading things in fear of losing their job, right? So that was one thing that I took away that I didn't like. And Dan apologized. Like I said, why'd you wait so long to apologize to those people, right? You knew what you were doing, right? As soon as you got removed, you should have had a lot of self-reflection, and you took the time a little bit before they released this to say, hey, I apologize, I'm sorry, right? And then the same for you, Boogie. I feel like, bro, you should never did this interview. Right, this shit just looks right. And then, of course, to me, they grabbed a black guy, right, to be a little more common, to make it seem like I'm going to give you some shit. But you don't do it, bro, because you didn't challenge him. You didn't really hold him accountable. You didn't say, well, you shouldn't have done this. You just said, right. Well, what about this? Well, what do you think? Well, people feel, and it's like, bro, you can't. It just looked nasty, bro. It just looked like some nasty work, right? Another thing that I took away from that shit, like I said, I think Dan said, being in the writer's room, that he felt like he felt bad that he participated in some of the hazing or some of the just the sexual harassment and things like that. When I looked at it and I said, you participated, mother Nick, you led it. That was yours. What do you mean you participated, bro, when you led the charge? Bro, that is your set. You have been operating and working for Nickelodeon for years. And again, like I said, watching the documentary, people feared. There were people on there that still felt like they couldn't even have their face on there because they feared you and repercussions, right? Years later. So again, how do you say that you participated when you led the charge? Of course you participated, but you also initiated these things, right, for your staff, and you made them feel uncomfortable. And like I said, for you to wait 20 years to come back and apologize later, nasty work, bro. The next thing, Boogie was asking him, today's climate, some of the jokes might feel inappropriate, right? What you were doing back then. And I think Dan said something on the lines of, hey, if anybody felt uncomfortable about a joke or anything like that, if they said something, I would remove it. We would take that joke out and we would go opposite. And again, like I said, when we were going back to the show, that was impossible, right? When you yourself feel like what people want, you can get it, or what people want to hear, and what the kids want, you're going to go one way, especially when you're the big dick, right? When you're just, nobody can really challenge you, right? So you're going to go with that. So, and then of course the degrading scenes that we've seen, like the on air dare, the Ariana Grande video, like these little things like that, the jokes of the the Zoe 101 girl talking about, wearing a bra. She's like a 13, 14-year-old girl talking about, ooh, these bras make me cheeky, or, you're making this young girl very promiscuous and things like that. Like, those are the things you're writing, right? And nobody could have questioned you. Nobody could have challenged you. Nobody could have said, hey, bro, I don't think we should do that, right? Because one, you had a lot of young people in there, right? A lot of people trying to get their first break and things like that. So again, these people are just going with the go, right? Just so they can have a job, they can, get their foot in the door and things like that, right? Which again, like I said, I think it was very nasty work. I think it was a very unhealthy culture that you were bringing along to those people, right? The next thing that you did was shady in that writer's room where you allowed two young women to share a salary, right? And again, to me, that is just full on taking advantage, getting yourself 2 for 1, right? That's nasty. And then I'm sure you didn't even apologize to those young women until that they found out that that was against union laws, right? Like, what type of sexist asshole man shit is that, right? And I'm gonna just call it out for what it is. Being a man myself, that looks nasty. That looks crazy, right? I can't acknowledge. How can you not acknowledge that and say, well, damn, bro, that was wrong, right? But again, like I said, I don't think you gave a fuck, Dad, because again, you're generating, millions of dollars for billions of dollars for a company. They're probably turning a blind eye to what you're doing, which leads me to my next thing of saying, the shift blaming of when Tebow asked you who hired Brian Peck, right? For those that don't know, Brian Peck was a dialogue coach on the show. He worked with Nan for some years. He was in Hollywood for some years. Again, who knows the other things that he was doing, but he was the guy that came out, or not came out, but it was known for more of sexually assaulting Drake Bell, right? That was that gentleman, right? So this guy was on the Amanda show. He helped for all that. He was the pickle boy, like this grown ass man, 30-some-year-old pickle man, right? That was him. That was who his character is or was, right? So that guy was the one that sexual assaulted Drake. So, but he asked him, hey, what was going on? Did you hire him? Dan goes, no, that wasn't me. I didn't hire that guy. I didn't know he was doing none of that. It was the production company that hired this guy. And I just sat there and looked like, but you knew what he was doing. You knew what he was doing. Y'all knew what y'all was doing, right? There's no way you can, like the person said, what y'all was doing was open secrets, right? Y'all knew what y'all was doing, but again, you guys had this little club where you could do what you could do and nobody could say something, right? Like I said, you're making these companies billions of dollars. They're not going to say anything. They were in the moment. They might not say anything to you because what you're doing for their company. So again, I think him doing this interview was very disgusting, very nasty, and it was something for him to kind of save his face a little bit to get ahead of it. The next thing was, of course, he claims that he did have the power to do what he wanted to do, like he claimed. Although he written, produced shows and movies on Nickelodeon since mid 90s, right? All the way up until, like I said, maybe early 2020, something like that, when I know he did the show with Kel Mitchell and the young kid. I think something Dylan, whatever it is, something like that. But again, that's a crazy historic run to have. And for you to say you didn't have that much power, bullshit. Bull fucking shit, right? And like I said, guys, excuse my language, but it's really disheartening when you have these type of people in power, and then when they get caught, when you find a smoking gun, there's no accountability, right? There's no accountability whatsoever to these people. They do their shit, they leave these people traumatized, and they continue, right, until these things happen, right? Until a documentary has to come out and expose these type of people, okay? The next thing to me, and then I mean, we could talk on like some of the on-air things that he did, the on-air dare things where he had a little kid. Ooh, this nigga had P. Diddy on there. Did anybody see the episode with the little kids? All right, so I don't know the dude's name, but on one of the later versions of all that, I want to say probably like the 2002 episodes where the little kid was sleeping on the couch. They had two other guys trying to wake this guy up, and they get this whole thing of cream cheese or whatever it is. It just look gross. This white cream, and they pour it on the kid, right? Kid doesn't wake up, right? So they go, well, damn, how we gonna wake him up, right? So one of the white kids go, well, what would P. Diddy do? The black kid goes, I don't know. What would he do? So the white kid goes, well, let's just go ask him. They go to another set, and this nigga P. Diddy is right on set. So they go, hey, P. Diddy, our friend's not waking up. What can we do? He said, did you pour the cheese on him? Yeah, it didn't work. How about this? This nigga P. Diddy gives these niggas a toy helicopter and suggests you put this in his pants. Right? If that ain't sick, I don't know what it is. But it makes you think of like this kind of club or this ring or whatever of people doing these things out in the open, but it's a secret and no one's saying anything. So again, this shit is just nasty work to me. The next thing and the last thing probably in this one, I mean, I would talk about the Drake Bell thing, but I really don't want to get into it too much. just for triggering things for the most part, although half this shit was probably triggering to most people. But the Amanda Bynes situation was, I think, the craziest thing to me for the most part. Again, Amanda Bynes was already a comedian. She was already a young stand-up comedian at the age of like 5 or 6, which really was impressive in itself, right? Then she gets recognized by one of the other girls on the show who gets invited, and she tells Dan, hey, I think you should have this girl on the show, which of course Dan listens. He does an audition for this girl, and boom, she's a star instantly. Like, very amazing, great comedic timing and whatever these things. And of course, she's like a cute young girl, right? So again, she kind of fits these stats of what Dan Schneider's looking for, what Nickelodeon, what all these things are looking for, right? So again, Amanda gets her start on all that. Not only becomes the favorite for the young audience of people that are watching, but she becomes favorite of Dan, right? People would say on the on-set documentary where, you know, they would kind of see or notice Amanda would go missing a lot of times, right? And then it comes to find out that she's with Dan, right? Alone in a writer's room. Now, for any parent or for most parents, I don't think you should ever leave your child with another adult. I don't care what the situation is for the most part. If they're not somebody that you know, trust, if it's not a grandparent or something like that, maybe father or mother, you should never leave your child with another adult right there. Which makes me want to discuss the Drake Bell situation, which we might get into that after that. But again, people would say that Amanda would often go missing and be in the writer's room with Dan alone, right? And again, they would say that Amanda's dad was very willing and accepting because he wanted his daughter to be a star. To, hey, go ahead. You know, Dan and Amanda's father had a great relationship. So again, you can already see the trust in that situation where Amanda's dad said, hey, go ahead. I want my daughter to be a star. Dan, do whatever you got to do to get my daughter a star, right? And not knowing that, hey, I'm probably leaving my child with some pedophile creep, huh? Like things like that happen, and people don't understand that, right? Because we get blind, we get naive to things because we kind of see this certain outcome and things like that. And then, you know, we allow our children, or you know, people who do that allow their children to succumb to, you know, these things, right? Harassment and whatnot, right? And it's just nasty work. Although, like they said, parents were supposed to be on set. They're supposed to be with their kids at a time. These things were just not happening, right? There were a few times, like I said, I think in the span of like a few years maybe, that they caught 5 pedophiles that worked for Nickelodeon, right? Which is nasty. It's nonsense. But again, that makes me have to ask, even when these guys, especially when Brian Peck got caught, they had a lot of executives claiming and coming out and showing support in Brian Peck, claiming that he's not a bad guy, although he's over here sexually harassing kids. But again, it goes to show you what type of industry you live in, or what type of industry that is, right? You hear it all the time, especially with the Bill Cosby, with the Harvey Weinstein, with the Jeffrey Epstein. Like, these are the things that are going on in here. And again, I just say, hey, parents, if you want to put your children in that, protect them at all times, right? Again, I know we all want our kids to be happy. We want them to be successful. We want to do things to see them in those ways. But sometimes, you know, you don't want to lose sight. You don't want to, you know, not protect your child when you're trying to get them to certain things, right? Again, my best example that you see in Kel Mitchell, Kenan Thompson talks about all the time. You know, his parents were there on the set. You know, he knew how to play the game in a situation, and essentially, you know, be able to maneuver through without him having to be harassed. Now, I'm pretty sure he's came across some things, you know what I mean? But I'm sure he's had his parents there to kind of help navigate him in that world. Even if you watch the documentary Quiet on the Set, I can't think of the young guy's name, but he used to wear the headband, right? Where his mom was there. His mom was there, right? And she saw things that she didn't like, and then she didn't appreciate. Okay. And which led to that kid not being invited to the next season. But, you know, that kid probably didn't understand it. You know, he probably didn't like his mom, but she saved him from a world of trauma. You know, of course, he probably didn't understand. He went into his traumas of things, just not understanding as a kid. But I'm sure as he did this documentary and he's looking back on it now and watching, you know, I'm pretty sure he's grateful. I even watched it, was like, you know, I'm grateful to that woman. Right. But again, you know, I think Dan Schneider was very sick, very sick perv. And again, I think he should get whatever he deserves. Like I said, I think what was nasty when he said it all about the writer shit, the Sam and Cat joint with Ariana Grande and Jeanette McCurdy. Have you seen the video of this girl trying to squeeze juice out of a potato? Right? Not only did they have her try to do that, they had her laying back on a bed, pouring water on herself, sexualizing this 14-year-old girl. Nasty work. Nasty work. So like I said, again, Dan, for you to do this interview, for you to say what you said, for you really not to acknowledge any of the things that you did, right? You did cry, you did say you did bad things, but my thing is maybe you should have did a little bit sooner, maybe for this documentary come out, because it just looks bad to me. It looks bad. And like I said, Boogie, for you to interview this nigga, it looks terrible, right? Back to Amanda. This nigga Dan is so sick. And this is how predators operate, right? Amanda gets emancipated at 16. 16 years old, she gets emancipated from her family. Right now, again, however your family are, most of the time they mostly have your best interest. Like I said, they have your best interest. Sometimes they might not know better. Sometimes they might not. Sometimes some people might know better. Sometimes some people, will not. But again, in this situation, Dan helped her get emancipated from her family. Right. And again, look what it did to her. Right. Although they wanted conservativeship and things like that, Amanda's life is never going to be the same. I mean, I don't know if people ever remember years ago that Twitter account that was created by Amanda allegedly under another name, but it posted her ID and things like that. And she was going on a crazy exposure tweet rant, Nickelodeon's full of sickos, Nickelodeon pedophiles. I had to have an abortion at 13 by a famous producer in Hollywood. Like, these little things like that are insane, right? But again, like I said, parents, protect your children as much as possible in that sense, right? Which leads me to my next one. We're going to talk about it because, it's interesting. The Drake Bell situation where Drake Bell was taken advantage of by, again, Brian Peck, who was a dialogue coach on a few of sets of Dan Snyder's productions, right? Drake's story was, just like the same, person, wanting to be a kid, a kid wanted to be in Hollywood. So again, his dad was an awesome person. His dad was like, hey kid, son, if you want to do this, I'm gonna take you here. I'm gonna do this for you, but I'm gonna be there, right? I understand this world. So really earlier, just to jump a little ahead, as Drake was getting older, as he was getting on the Amanda show, right? Which Amanda kind of helped him get that break. You got Brian Peck around. So you have a Brian Peck that's kind of taking a liking to this young Drake Bell, right? Which Drake Bell's father kind of seen it, right? He kind of noticed, like, this guy's around my child a little too much. This grown ass man is showing up to Drake's concerts, taking hour drives, and showing up, bringing his other friends, right? Things not adding up, right? So Drake's dad was trying to keep him away from this guy Brian Peck, right? But just like predators, they're digging in, trying to get in any way they feel, right? So with Drake Bell, as he's getting older, after the Amanda show, he's becoming a young teenager, which he's able to make his own decisions, right? Which that gives Brian a chance to kind of manipulate that a little bit, right? Kind of get in his ear and say, well, hey man, your dad's stealing your money. Hey, your dad's not doing this. Hey, these things that are happening, right? Predators doing what they do and kind of really trying to isolate you a little bit from the ones that are watching, right? This is what they do. They isolate you from your family, they isolate you from people who actually care so they can get to you themselves and they can dig their claws into you, right? So as Drake's getting older, he's listening to Brian. He going, hey, Brian, because again, this is a guy he's seeing every day. This is a guy that's being cool. This is a guy that's being very trusting, and all these things, right? So you can't help a guy who's been in the industry for, 20 plus amount of years. So, right, as a young kid who really doesn't know too much, haven't been in this industry, but you're going to look at an adult and be like, well, he's been in this industry a very long time and my father hasn't. Simple, right? Manipulation 101. So as soon as that happens, Drake listens to this man and then boom, fires him as his manager, pretty much. Fires his own father as his manager. And his father was doing everything he could to look out for his son, but like Drake Bell's dad said, hey, I want to make my dad happy, right? So again, I think Drake mom takes over, right? So again, Drake mom and his dad, as they show in there, didn't have the best relationship, right? So again, a lot of spiteful things that happen. Of course, the mom probably not fucking with the dad, doing spiteful things. So again, she's on Brian's side when Brian comes into her and saying, hey, your ex-husband's not doing this, he's not doing that, he should be doing this, he should be doing that, blah, 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 blah. So of course, the woman is going to listen to him in that manner. I'm saying in that manner. I don't want to get nobody to get on my ass about no shit. The woman is listening to him in that manner, right? And saying, well, yeah, you are right, and my husband is wrong. He's an asshole because he didn't do nothing in our relationship. So you know what? I'm going to help you separate. Hey, Drake's dad, you're no longer doing it. I'm going to take over, right? Drake's dad feels some type of way but goes, hey, If it makes Drake happy, we're going to do it, right? So then the mother takes over, and then she isn't as, I'm not saying supportive, but she isn't as active with Drake as his dad was, right? So which allows her to say, well, here, Brian, I need you to take the reins on my son's career, pretty much, right? Which now at this point, we got him, right? I got him. I got the kid now. So, right, the mom becomes entrusted to Brian, allowing Drake, right? This is what got me. Allowing Drake to stay at Brian's house. Right? Brian takes over his career, driving him certain places, and the excuse for Brian to do what he did starting off was, hey, it's too late. I don't want to drive you this long distance to spend a night, right? So Drake kid, don't know no better. Hey, cool. Parents were trusting him and things like that. But the first thing, and one of the things that Drake's dad said before he gave everything over was, ex-wife, make sure you do not allow this guy to be around Drake alone, right? But again, women who are in that moment, it seems bitter, who seem naive, don't know no better, right? So they're going to do somewhat of opposite of what's being asked, right? And again, some people make it about themselves and not about the kids, right? And what you asked me, I think the mom made it about herself and not about her kid, right? But again, I'm not judging. I'm just giving my opinion. So once this happened, Drake explains that, hey, after a few times, the guy, attempts to do it. He does it, essay him, we're going to be politically correct. I'm going to say, the thing, but he essays him, and he does it, and then he does it a few times. Now, again, for a young boy, I can assume that, it's something that can be shameful that you experience, that you go through, that you don't want to tell anybody. So some things that you kind of just live with, right? So again, his parents aren't really, dad not really too much in the picture, mom isn't really helping out too much, so you have this grown-ass man really just taking advantage of their son, right? And again, he's not saying anything, right? So I think, like I said, there are just a few different types of parents out there in the world, some that are for their kids, some that are not for their kids, right? It is what it is. But again, that leads me on to my next one of saying, those things happened to Drake, and what helped Drake was his girlfriend at the time, he's 14, 15. And again, these things from, according to him, were happening before the Drake and Josh show, right? Which is crazy to me, right? To experience these things and then have to go do a show, right? So Drake's girlfriend's mom in the time, she steps in, not necessarily steps in, but she notices things, right? So there was one time where Drake's at the girlfriend's crib, Brian Peck was calling his phone, blowing him up. Hey, where you at? What's going on? Drake's not answering, right? He's blowing him up. Drake's not answering. Somehow, this man gets a hold of the girlfriend's house number, and he's blowing them up, right? Mom's little, that light bulb goes off. What is going on? So I guess she brings Drake in a room, asking what's going on, right? So long story short, mom has her spidey senses on, recognizes that Drake's in trouble. She instantly hops in there, right? Things don't happen right away, right? Things don't instantly happen right away until Drake says he's speaking to his mom, and then he just blows up, says all these things, and then now the cat is out the bag. Brian Peck gets arrested and sent to jail or prison for pedophile crimes, pretty much sexual assault, pedophile crimes, right? Those are the things that he's had to endure on this, and those are the things that a lot of people have probably had to endure, not only kids but adults as well, in that type of industry. And again, like I said, there's two different types of parents, right? A Drake Bell parent, right, who was trying to be there for his son and do all of those things. And then you might have the parent that might be like the Amanda Bynes dad, where Dan, do what you got to do to get my daughter a start, right? I don't care what it might take. I don't care what it looks like, blah, 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 right? So again, I think it was just nasty work. And again, from the whole thing, I think Dan Snyder had a lot of control, a lot of power, and to stop it, right? Again, like he said, he started off cool, and then as time goes on, he gets a little bit power. His what is that? What is the word I'm looking for? His cravings, right, for his pedophile ways start enhancing, or the way he wants to write his jokes or things like that, starting to seep out a little bit, right? And it causes a lot of this trauma, right? And you're talking about 20, almost 30 years of this shit, right? And again, like I said, him to apologize, him to say, well, if people didn't like it, we should pull it when the damage has already been done, right? Saying that, hey, let's just take them jokes off the air right now. Let's get it off. And again, you don't understand, bro. You've already ruined a lot of those people's lives. Like, people can never be the same. People are going through therapy to kind of get normal. And again, you were the cause of that damage when you had the power to do right by people and you didn't do right by people, right? So now, like I said, I hope you get whatever comes your way, Dan. I hope you get whatever comes your way for the most part. And like I said, I think the whole thing was bullshit. The interview more was bullshit. I think you should have never done it. Boogie, like I said, you should have never done it, nigga. For sure, right? You shouldn't have done that shit whatsoever. And like I said, I think the documentary was very great to spread light for those who didn't know. Like I said, I've always been interested in Hollywood and things like that, so I've always kind of looked at that all the way from the Hollywood tree and the Holly tree and things like that, or the Holly plan, whatever it is. So it dates back for me from that, and doing my research and my due diligence, I've always understood that, oh shit, there might be fucking kids over there. Sorry, I don't want to say it like that, but that's what they're doing. Like, and there's sick people over there that are doing these things. And again, parents, if you want to allow your children to get into that world, just be there. Be there to protect them. Make sure these things don't happen again. And if people don't allow you to be there, then shit, that ain't for you. Go ahead and just dip the fuck out of there, right? It's just not for you, right? It shouldn't be nothing of your nature and anything, none of that, right? But yeah, man, that's all I got. That's all I got for that on the set from the Dan Schneider interview. I really didn't want to get too much in depth, just my opinion on some of the things that I saw in there that I really didn't like. I know there's a lot more in there that we could probably discuss later on, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents on those things and what I felt was wrong, and what Dan had to say in his response, and what I thought about his responses. Like I said, I'm gonna keep saying it was bullshit. I hope somebody does come out and say Dan did something to them that is actually true, so he can see his day in jail and those other people can get their justice for what is not done. Again, it's just sick. Like, you got a guy who's created over 30 popular shows, and he's had his hands, around hundreds and not thousands of people. Right, so not telling how many other thousands of people out of that show have not said anything. Right, he had a lot of people massaging him on set, which is sexual harassment, little shit like that. Right, so again, like I said, things of that nature, bro. Watching that, if you knew, you knew. If you didn't, well, now you know now, and you understand how sick that world can be. Right, if you're not protected, how demonic that is for the most part. Right, so I just say, y'all just stay prayed up. Stay prayed up, be protected, watch your children. Like I said, I'm a new father myself. As much as power that I have that God allows me to do, I'm going to protect my children. You dig what I'm saying? Alrighty. So that brings us to the end of that. Again, like I said, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, listening to me, checking out my 2 cents on what was going on last week. This episode will be dropping this week, along with another episode as well. We're going to drop 2 this week. Which one was well overdue a little bit, but we're gonna drop 2 this week, then we're gonna drop another 2 next week, and drop another 2 next week, and so on and so on. Again, y'all stay tuned, bro. I'm gonna definitely have some guests. It's not gonna be me solo all the time, but most of the time, all right? We're gonna get our guy Purdy back on here with a webcam. And like I said, he's in the Navy, serving his country, protecting us all at the moment right now. But again, we're going to get some musicians over here. We're going to get whoever else that want to just come kick it with us. We're going to have some other little fun things that we can discuss. We're going to do things like that. We're going to have some in-car interviews and things like that. We just want to have some fun. We just kind of want to expand this a little bit. And like I said, just get my opinion. You can like it or not. It don't matter to me. I'm just talking shit to a camera and a microphone. All right? All right. So with that being said, we're going to get out of here. Of course, I got some songs, some reviews that I got in here for us for the most part. That's just something I end off. I love music. So especially talent in my city. So I'm going to get us with one that I have right now. This is one of me featuring my guy SP, Young in the SP. It's called Again. Me and Young in the SP, man.
No matter how much money I spend, I'm gon' ball again. When they see me, they know who I am. I've been ballin'. It don't matter what car you see me in. You know that I'm gon' ball again. I'm at the bar with all my friends.
What's up, bro?
You know that we big ballin'.
What's up, bro?
Ay, it's just my way of life. Ballin' every day and night. Every day's a vacay. I'm on the beach wearing white. Cause I've been going hard and having everything I like. They know me by my rap name, and I don't take that light. I knock it out like a long flight. I've been ballin' out for a long